Hello, and welcome back to Control-Alt-Lead, the podcast from computing where we talk to IT leaders at the sharp edge of strategy and tech leadership. Today, I'm joined by Alexandra Ebert, who is not only an advisor on AI and data to the UK's FCA, the OECD, and the IEEE, but in her day job is Chief AI and Data Democratization Officer at Mostly AI. So, Alexandra, thanks for joining me today.
It's a pleasure to be with you today, Tom.
Brilliant. Okay, so we've got a lot to talk about and not a lot of time to do it. So let's dive straight in. You have some opinions on the current implementation of modern AI systems. So this is generative and agentic AI and that kind of things.
First, you tell me we don't have much time, and then I should give you all of my opinions. But one of the things that I'm seeing in our work with executives in large organizations is there is this hype-driven focus on how to get more Gen AI, how to get more AI assistants in the organization, but quite a lack on the strategy side of things and really thinking about how to holistically bring this new technology into the organization to solve real business problems and to get the employees on board. So that's one of the pain points that I'm currently seeing so many organizations grapple with.
Yes, we certainly hear the same thing from IT leaders. We talk to CIOs, CTOs, CISOs. No matter what the role is, they have been told, hey, implement AI with no sort of overarching strategy. Is that something that you're seeing a lot as well?
Absolutely, or just don't having the foundations in place. We all know there is no AI without data, but so many organizations now want to do AI without even knowing what data assets they do have. So there's really some homework and groundwork that needs to be done before you can expect to see relevant business outcomes.
So let's talk about big tech and the role that big tech plays in this implementation of AI now. Where do the people like the Amazons of the world, the Googles, the Microsofts come into this, and how much are they to, I don't want to exactly say to blame, but yeah, where do we stand on big tech and their role in current modern AI?
Wow, again, big topic. I think on the one hand, we're seeing a really interesting paradigm shift happen at big tech. So when we think back the past few decades, they were really this epicenter of the knowledge economy, introducing software into the world and being quite lightweight on their capital expenditure, but strong on the brain power, the human capital. Now we see Microsoft, AWS going into infrastructure spendings that are unprecedented. And of course, all of this infrastructure, all of these data centers that they created will need to see return on investment. And I think this is also partially why we currently see so much excitement and so many overinflated statements of AI can take up 30% of your coding work or can replace so many people to get the enterprises excited and pressured to also invest more and use those capacities.
So you think that big tech effectively is hyping up AI so they can get a return on investment?
I think that's one piece of the puzzle. The other thing that concerns me more on this policy side of things I'm engaging with is that political leaders and regulators are currently overemphasizing on large language models and frontier models of our current architectures as the main focus area. But as you know, and as hopefully many of our listeners know, AI is just not one thing, and they're severely forgetting about the entire AI ecosystem and what needs to be done to make sure that not only a few American companies profit from this, but that we actually can see AI implemented into the economy at large to see the benefit on the economic and also on the societal scale.
That's very true, because when people talk about AI now, they're almost exclusively talking about generative or agentic, but there are these very important, proven, workhorse analytical AI systems that have been around for many years. Do you think the hype around, Gen and agentic AI is taking the focus away from those proven systems?
I mean, on the one hand, yes, but I don't want to necessarily say that that's a bad thing. I mean, of course, there is this concern that with Gen AI getting that much attention, and when we think to the MIT study or the different results that came out around AI Workslop, this is of course now reflecting that on the AI ecosystem at large. But I think we are undergoing this transition from AI being a specialist application in some parts of the organization to really being a transformative technology that in the future increasingly will be used to empower any employee. But that's not necessarily only Gen AI that we need to focus on, which brings me back to the earlier point. There needs to be a strategy in place. There needs needs to be a vision for what an organization wants to achieve with this technology, and not just following the hype and introducing ChatGPT to every employee, or as some other organizations did it, saying they do AI, but then it's the Christmas card image that was generated by it, just so that it sounds nice to the public and to their investors, that they're also not missing that train.
Yeah. You mentioned an interesting word there. And before we hit AI strategy, I'd like to come back to it. AI Workslop. Can you go into that a little bit and explain what that is?
Sure. So there was quite some coverage on AI Workslop recently, where on the one hand, we've heard these narratives of individuals saying, hey, I currently employ so many AI assistants, I feel 10 times as productive, I get my work done way quicker. But then the receiving end, the colleagues, the bosses, etc., complaining about the lack of quality, the lack of substance, the lack of original thought, which actually leads to way more work on their plates. And therefore, the overall efficiency and business impact for an organization has to be put into question.
So it would be people who are using AI excessively to, say, write emails that they could have done themselves, or putting the burden on their colleagues effectively to cover the weaknesses of the AI systems that they're using. Is that roughly accurate?
It could come down to using AI stupidly. So AI has certain capabilities where it's quite strong currently, but if you expect it to come up with original thought and do an entire project for you, and you just auto-generate that with the press of a button and a few prompts, and then don't fact-check the result, don't overwork the result to have something that you put and pour your thought into it, then I think you're pretty close to the Workslop side of things.
Okay. So let's bring it back now to strategy. You've talked a lot about the spread of, or perhaps the poor use of AI systems. What does good use of AI systems look like? How do people pivot to using AI productively?
Mm-hmm. I mean, again, we only have a few minutes left, so it's hard to go into a very detailed list of things. But again, AI is a technology. AI is not even one technology. AI is a plethora of tools. And we all know if you run around with a hammer and see everything as a nail, that becomes an issue. So you need to first figure out what are the business pains that you want to address in your organization. Is it cost saving, looking at the back office side of things, or is it how you can invest into unleashing capabilities and strengthening innovation, product innovation, and stuff like that? So I think there always has to be a business strategy, and then the consideration if and where AI can fall into that. And I think what most decision makers underestimate is that they come with their top-down ideas of what they want to do with AI and fail to bring the business sides along. So most successfully, I find our organizations that actually combine the technology departments and the business departments, and in close collaboration identify what are the areas that are a real pain in the day-to-day work, are those areas that can be adequately addressed with current AI tooling, and then starting from there and going out to more ambitious use cases.
So bring tech and business together is one of the key points.
Absolutely.
There.
Not having tech in an ivory tower, just playing with the nicest and fanciest algorithms and then throwing them over to fans to have the business side go, what should I do with that?
Yeah. And then also have some clear ideas of the outcomes that you want.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, great. And that is not isolated to AI. We've seen so many examples in recent years of people who have had IT issues that have then been solved by talking to the business, bringing the business together, because increasingly IT leaders are business leaders. They're not, as you say, in their ivory tower anymore.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I think, again, coming back to this transition that we're seeing, and I absolutely do believe that IT from just one function of the business will be the scaffolding of the entire organization, which also means that leaders not only need to understand from the business side how to manage other corporate assets, financial assets, resources, even employees, even though I don't want to describe employees as a resource on the same level, but they all have a severe lack of understanding of data and AI as a resource. And I think this is something that needs to change, because we're seeing that from some specialist applications, as you referred to also earlier, which needed experts to develop and to operate, these technologies are going in any part of the business, being that marketing, being that sales, being that normal back office functions. And all of that requires an organization to actually think about how can we use data and AI as strategic assets, and what do we need to do to differentiate ourselves in contrast to anybody else who is using these things.
Brilliant. So I suppose we have time for perhaps one more question, and I apologize because it's another big one. We've seen a lot of talk in the last couple of months about this AI bubble.
Mm-hmm.
AI is a bubble. AI is the next .com. It's going to take the economy with it when it bursts. And you said earlier, you implied that big tech is sort of hyping up AI for their own bottom line. What's your opinion on this? Is AI an investment bubble? Is it actually capable of fulfilling the promises that are being hyped? Or are we going to see a bursting of that bubble and this sort of slide into the trough of disillusionment, as the Gartner hype cycle would have it?
I'm ditching the stock market question because there's an aspect that I find way more important about these conversations, which is not adequately and enough discussed, in my opinion. So, as said already earlier, in my opinion, this overemphasis of current architectures of large language models, of frontier models, and the enormous amount of computes, including the spending that come with that, is a bet that particularly on an economic level, on a society level, I would urge political leaders to question. On the one hand, opportunity costs. Should we really put all of our eggs in that basket if we know that we have so many other challenges in the healthcare system, in the education system, and so on and so forth? But AI does have this potential to tremendously benefit the economy at large and the society. But if we continue to only focus on what big tech needs, then I'm not going to see this value being realized. And therefore, it's really about how we can build up a flourishing AI ecosystem, more in the sense of saying AI is a foundational technology akin to electricity. And show me one small and medium enterprise that can work nowadays without an electric socket, from the hairdresser to a mid-sized factory. Every organization gets value out of electricity. We are not yet there with AI, and also on a societal level, we are not yet seeing the AI for good returns that were promised. It is possible, but we need to establish the ecosystem. We need to make data available. We need to make sure that we can actually get it into the backbone of our economy and see application of tools where they're addressed to business problems, and not just because it's now fun to have ChatGPT Christmas cards or any marketing flashy AI use, which is currently the focus area.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about I know I said that was going to be my last question, but something else occurred to me.
I just wanted to point it out, but as I like to talk, please continue.
Well, you talked about, poor implementation of AI systems, perhaps people using these big LLMs that are not suitable. So how about the rise of small language models, which of course are much more compute efficient, much more energy efficient? I think we can all agree now that energy is one of the big limiting factors in the spread of AI. Would the spread of small language models change the game?
I mean, I think small language models do have their place, and you pointed it out. It's the cost, it's the different speed, it's also the environmental impact that can be toned down. Plus, large language models are a little bit like the, Boeing 747, super useful for certain things, but I don't want to use the Boeing 747 to go to my daily grocery shopping or my weekly grocery shopping. I need something specialized for that. And I think small language models, but other architectures that we already have or will have in the future, can have their place there. One critical element is the proprietary business data of organizations. I was just in Vegas at a big banking and AI conference the other week, and there every executive emphasized that the next frontier for them is how do we actually unlock our proprietary business data to make sure that these models specifically do what we need in our business, because a model trained on the generic internet, of course, can do some things quite well. But if I ask them about my specific customers, the answers I'm getting are generic, and we all know that is not going to do the trick if we want to give personalization and extra value to our customers.
Absolutely. That, unfortunately, is all the time we have. So, Alexandra, thank you so much for joining me today. That's been great.
Thank you for all of your great questions. It was a pleasure, Tom.
All right. And to our audience, thank you for listening to this episode of Control-Alt-Lead. We've got some other great guests coming up for the rest of this season, so please keep an eye out for those. And in the meantime, head over to computing.co.uk for more IT leader interviews, research, and analysis. See you soon.